I'm standing on my own dock at 6 a.m., coffee in hand, when 3 police cruisers come screaming down my driveway in Willowbrook Estates. The HOA president is pointing at me like I'm public enemy number 1, screaming that I'm illegally fishing on community property. The irony is thick enough to cut with a knife. I've owned this 5-acre property, complete with its pristine 2-acre spring-fed lake, since 2009, and these people have been trespassing on my land for years without a second thought. But here's what Karen and her board don't realize yet. I'm not just some electrician they can push around. I got 38 years of unbroken property deeds, over $400 worth of trail cameras capturing every move, and a very patient attorney on speed dial who knows exactly how to dismantle this kind of nonsense. My name is Mike, and at 42 years old, the land, 5 acres of quiet woodland surrounding a beautiful spring-fed lake, had been in our family since suddenly my peaceful retreat was surrounded by $400,000 to $600,000 houses filled with upper-middle-class families and retirees who expected resort-style amenities as part of their package. Many of them took one look at my lake, and a retired marketing executive, she had that kind of smile that never quite reached her eyes and a real talent for making suggestions sound like royal decrees. Within 6 months, she was elected HOA president on a platform of enhancing property values through community standards enforcement. In plain English, she planned to make everyone's life miserable until they fell in line. The first major clash happened on a quiet Saturday morning in early 2023. I was heading down to the lake with my coffee when I heard the whine of a cordless drill. Someone was installing signs on my land. I marched over and found Karen herself, dressed in what looked like suburban safari gear, directing 2 guys with a post-hole digger. Her overpowering floral perfume hit me before I even got close. "Excuse me," I said, keeping my voice steady. "What exactly are you doing?" She turned with that practiced smile and replied, "Oh, Mike, just helping clarify property boundaries for everyone's benefit." I told her plainly that she was putting signs on my private property without permission. Her smile faltered. "Well, there's been some confusion about public access to community amenities." "There's no confusion," I shot back. "This is private property. Those signs come down now." That's when the real Karen appeared. The mask slipped, and underneath was pure entitlement wrapped in righteous indignation. "I don't think you understand your position here," she hissed. "This neighborhood has standards. Some people just don't fit." That was the moment war was declared. 2 weeks later, while I was enjoying my usual early morning fishing, multiple car doors slammed. Karen emerged through the trees like she was leading a tactical operation, flanked by 3 other board members. She announced, using my last name like we were in court, that they needed to discuss my ongoing violations of community standards. I stood there on my own dock, holding my own fishing rod, and asked what on earth she was talking about. One of her lackeys handed me an official-looking envelope, a cease and desist order claiming I was disrupting community peace and making unauthorized use of shared recreational facilities. Shared recreational facilities. I repeated, "You mean my private lake that I own?" Karen calmly explained that the HOA had determined certain amenities impacted property values and therefore fell under their jurisdiction. Continued violations would mean daily fines of $2,000 and potential liens on my property. Bullies like Karen count on shock and pressure to make you fold. I simply told her I'd review it with my attorney. That weekend, I drove to the county recorder's office and dug through public records. What I discovered was gold. The Willowbrook Estates HOA was incorporated in March 2014, 2 full years after I had inherited my land in 2009. An HOA formed after you already own your property has 0 legal authority over you. They can't retroactively claim jurisdiction. Armed with that knowledge, I hired a real attorney. For a $5,000 consultation, he sent a sharp cease and desist letter demanding they stop the harassment immediately. I went on the offensive too, posting copies of my deed and survey on the neighborhood Facebook group with a polite explanation of the actual boundaries. Several neighbors responded with support and shared their own stories about Karen's overreach. She deleted my posts, blocked me, and accused me of harassment instead. Then she escalated by calling government agencies. Code enforcement showed up with a list of supposed violations. The inspector looked around my well-kept property and basically said he had no idea why he was there. Another visit from wildlife officers over commercial fishing ended in laughter when they saw my single rod and tackle box. The pattern was clear. Karen was trying every lever of power she could pull. My deeper dive into the HOA documents revealed something even worse. The original 2014 incorporation excluded my property, but a 2019 amendment magically added it without my consent. You can't just vote someone into an HOA like that. It's illegal. My attorney called it outright fraud. He sent another strongly worded letter threatening a lawsuit for fraudulent boundary claims and harassment. The board quickly voted to suspend enforcement actions while they reviewed jurisdiction. I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. Karen shifted from legal harassment to personal attacks. She spread rumors that I'd threatened her physically. She called the police, claiming I'd confronted her aggressively. When officers arrived, I showed them my security camera footage, proving I'd been in my workshop the entire time. The officer ended up warning her about filing false reports and suggested I consider a harassment complaint of my own. That incident made me realize I needed more eyes on my property. I installed 6 motion-activated trail cameras with night vision along the back perimeter where a well-worn footpath led from the subdivision straight to my lake. What they captured over the next 2 weeks was shocking. 47 separate trespassing incidents, including families picnicking, teenagers partying, and adults holding fishing tournaments. Karen herself appeared in the footage 8 times, lounging at my lake like it was her personal resort. Even worse, a neighbor quietly showed me the HOA budget, $15,000 spent over 3 years on lake maintenance. They had also listed my lake on their insurance policy as a covered community amenity while I carry my own insurance and all the liability. My attorney was stunned. This had crossed into multiple counts of fraud, tax fraud, insurance fraud, theft of services. We now had grounds for serious criminal complaints. The final pieces fell into place when the county assessor's office sent me a letter showing the HOA had filed a tax appeal on my property, claiming partial ownership to reduce the tax burden. That was tax fraud, plain and simple. I upgraded my legal team to a litigation specialist who took the case on contingency because the evidence was so strong. A forensic accountant found $47,000 in questionable HOA expenses. A professional surveyor created court-ready boundary maps. Trail cameras kept rolling, capturing everything from vandalism on my dock, with Karen's car visible nearby, to her attempting to move my survey markers. Karen's desperation grew. She made false 911 calls, filed fake environmental complaints with fabricated lab reports, tried to interfere with my electrical business, and even offered me $25,000 in a recorded conversation to drop everything, an offer that amounted to bribery and extortion. Her public video rant, filled with conspiracy theories and veiled threats of vigilante action, was the final straw. It went viral in the neighborhood and turned even her supporters against her. At the packed monthly town hall meeting, the room was electric with anticipation. Karen gave a dramatic speech, painting me as a dangerous criminal. When my turn came, I calmly laid out the evidence one piece at a time. The deed, the insurance documents, the tax appeal, the audio recording of her bribe, and the trail camera footage of her supervising vandalism. The crowd's reaction went from murmurs to outright shock. Before she could recover, the sheriff walked in and arrested her on the spot for false police reports, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit vandalism. Handcuffs clicked while the entire community watched. 3 weeks later, Karen pleaded guilty to multiple fraud charges. She received probation, community service, and had to pay $50,000 in restitution to the residents she'd been overcharging. The HOA issued a formal apology, permanently excluded my property from their jurisdiction, and adopted new transparent practices. Karen moved away shortly afterward, and the neighborhood finally breathed easier. 6 months later, I hosted the first annual Willowbrook Lake Day. Families gathered on the grass. Kids learned to fish, and the air filled with laughter and the smell of grilled burgers mixed with fresh lake water. What had once been a battleground became a place of community healing. I started a free educational program with the state wildlife department teaching kids about lake ecology. My electrical business grew stronger than ever from the positive attention, and I even began helping other families facing similar HOA battles. Today, when I stand on my dock at sunrise with coffee in hand, listening to the loons and watching families arrive for fishing lessons, I feel a deep sense of peace. The lake that almost tore everything apart is now a symbol of what happens when one person refuses to be bullied and chooses to document, prepare, and stand firm. Sometimes the most satisfying victories aren't loud. They're quiet mornings by the water, surrounded by neighbors who finally understand that private property means something and that standing up to overreach protects everyone in the end. If you've ever faced your own HOA nightmare or neighborhood bully, I'd love to hear your story. The wildest, best documented ones often become the ones that help others fight back smarter. Justice doesn't always arrive with flashing lights and handcuffs, but when it does, it tastes as sweet as that first cup of coffee on a peaceful lake at dawn.